It's 7:07. I'm Daedalus Howell. We're with the venerable institution, Chris Smith. You know him from the Press Democrat. And I should say from the outset, just as full disclaimer, we both serve the same master, Sonoma Media Investments. I with the Argus Courier, Rivertown Report, and Sonoma Magazine, and you with this institution you've created that kind of picks up where Herb Cain left off with 3-dot journalism. I think you're 5 dots at this point, if I look at it correctly.
We got to cut some of those dots, make space as the paper gets smaller.
Broadsheets used to be broad, they had the width of your shoulders.
Well, it's kind of amazing to look at an old newspaper, how big it is, and beyond that, how many stories they piled onto it. You look at an old paper from the early 20th century, and there might be 24 stories on it.
Right, and it's like 6 columns wide, you know, and you opened up all the way, you could practically fly.
Exactly. Well, and it took me a while to figure out that one of the greatest expenses of a newspaper is actually the newsprint. People ask, why is the paper so small? Well, if I have this right, and I've certainly been told this by publishers at the PD, that after labor, the number 2 expense is that newsprint that comes in 1-ton rolls.
Wow.
Comes in, and we know that at the Press Democrat printing facility down in Rohnert Park, we have robots that move it. They don't actually look like robots, but they are robots that pick up a 1-ton roll of newsprint and put it on the press. But that paper is so expensive that when you have to cut costs, so that's one thing they look at. It's actually trimming.
It's literally cutting the cost down.
Trimming. So.
But it's not just the PD. Like most broadsheets now have lost at least a column inch on each side.
Oh yeah.
Right, and they're narrow affairs now. They're all as wide as tabloids.
Definitely.
You know?
I think it is to cut the costs. You know, kind of conserve newsprint.
Wow.
Amazing.
I love it. And yet, the Press Democrat in particular, especially with a lot of its new digital initiatives across all of its properties, and the Press Democrat isn't just the Press Democrat, it's a family, it's part of a family of different products, and a lot of which are digital, right?
And that's more.
Yeah, and I mean, I know working with Annika Turnquist, we're talking hundreds of thousands of views a month for some of these. And
well, I understand that the views are going up, and of course we're trying more video, more photographs, more everything online, because you know it's kind of following the readers. We're not sure exactly where we're going to go with this, but definitely readers want to be updated throughout the day. So our favorite readers, so we love all of our readers,
of course,
but our very favorite readers subscribe to the newspaper, the printed newspaper, and then throughout the day, whenever their schedule allows, check in at pressdemocrat.com throughout the day. So we hope to have both, because our bedrock of the business is still the people who buy and read the printed newspaper, and we know that generationally that's not likely to continue forever.
Because people don't live forever.
Well, not only we are very sorry when a subscriber dies, believe me. No, but apart from that, on a regular, as recently as yesterday, I'm talking to some folks at an event, and a very nice lady said that she asked, there's some young people at her table if they read the newspaper, and none of them read the printed newspaper. Of
course,
We just know that's something that younger people have gotten away from, and I can understand with the immediacy and the lesser cost of digital. It's right there. Why would you wait? Why would you pay the money? But then also I hear every day, and it does my heart good to every day talk to somebody, and it's almost the same words. I have to have that newspaper in my hand.
Right.
I want to sit down, I want my cup of coffee, or I got the dog, and I want to sit and I want to read that newspaper. And that they've tried, some of them have tried, and it's just it's a different type of reading. It's a different, your brain is functioning differently when you're online, and it's just different. Here you open up the page, it's very simple. You read that headline, either it tickles you or it doesn't. Maybe this one, maybe they all do. And you pick and you go on to the next one, and also what I love about newspapers, everybody's got their favorite. People want to tell you, oh, I've talked to people who read the comics first, who read the comics last. And then, of course, at the Press Democrat, we heard for many, many years that what they care about most is the local news, and that's why just in this past year, we moved the local news from our renowned, long-established Empire section, the B section, and now it's been added into
Flipped.
the A section,
Yeah.
and it does make sense. And I think, that, of course, not everybody liked it, but I think people are generally used to it now, that you've got local and state, national news on the front page, and then immediately A3 now as the news of what we used to call the Redwood Empire.
I think it makes sense. And one thing I wanted to ask you, now that there's such a digital, or an emphasis on the digital phenomena that complements traditional print publishing, I've noticed in my career, I've had to change the way I write sometimes. It's not just the way the readers read, it's how writers write now. And not with our institutions, but with other publishers, I've had to write certain things certain ways, certain length. Less length, usually.
Less.
Use keyword density, search engine optimization, curiosity gap headlines, things that they don't teach you in J school. Maybe they do now, but
Probably they do now, but
that's just social media, though.
right.
You know what I mean? I've noticed
Yes.
that you've managed to resist that. How? Like
The resist changing how I write.
changing, or unless you've done it imperceptibly. How do you resist changing how you write to maintain the voice that you've created over these years, versus just creating what's it amounts to clickbait?
Well, it helps being very old.
Like, don't bother telling Smith, he's not going to do it yet.
Well, you know, there is a part of that. Don't even talk to me about that. You know, I'm supposed to be tweeting, and I think I tweet like 6 times a year. You know, someday maybe I'll finally get the hang of it. But you know, I have done. Next month or next year will be my 40th year at the Press Democrat.
Wow.
40 years, and so I've done what I've done so often and so long that I wouldn't really know how to change it, although there are subtle things that we have been coached on when we write headlines for the digital product. There are definitely things they want us to do. Some just as simple as making sure we get the geography in, that we get, normally I might not say Santa Rosa in the lead, because I assume everybody knows we're talking either about Santa Rosa or Sonoma, Petaluma, whatever. But I can see that online, you have to have that identifier Santa Rosa, you know, for people maybe reading out of the area.
Or who are searching Santa Rosa.
Or searching Santa Rosa, exactly.
Yeah.
So there are subtle things that even I have adjusted.
That's interesting. You know, you're talking earlier about how the broadsheet would have this smattering of stories, and really what that also is context for those stories. They almost speak to each other in some ways. Online, though, oftentimes people are coming in just from a search to a particular story, and they don't have that context, and that story isn't nested in an entire sort of fabric of information.
Exactly, yeah. So it's got to be pretty clear to the person who's looking for it. But, you know, I am trying to adjust to modern times, and actually one thing I do enjoy, that we can actually write a little longer online. That's true. You know, anymore now, the space of the newspaper is more confined sometimes than online. And I have to say that I do enjoy a lot of the aspects of the digital product. And one is just a kind of maybe it's too inside baseball, but one thing I really enjoy now, you know, you're a journalist, you know that there are times people ask you, you're writing a story for someone about someone, or you're writing obituary, whatever you're writing, right? And the person not understanding how our business works will often ask, may I read it before it goes in? And that's you know, that seems like a perfectly, because you know, it's like wedding invitations you would read over, and you know, a lot of things an ad in the newspaper you would read over, and of course they don't understand that no, we in the newspaper business can't allow someone to read our story before and start making corrections, or not, well, corrections would be good, but making changes. Oh, I didn't really want to say that, or I didn't want to say it that way, or can you leave that out, or I wouldn't write it that way. So the answer always is no, you cannot read it before it goes to print. I'm sorry, you know, I will go over with you if I have any questions. I'll try very hard to get it right, but no, you can't read it before it goes in the newspaper. Well, now I really like that whatever story I write, then I can let them know, you know, it's going to appear, say, this afternoon, Friday afternoon, prior to tomorrow's publication in the newspaper. Take a look at it, see if there's anything that isn't right.
There you go.
And then they can call, right, and I can, if there is something that's not right, I can fix it before it goes to print.
And you can fix it and no one has to know.
Yeah, there might be, the few people who've read it so far, but
Yeah.
and apart from that, it has really widened our world. There was a time when I came to the Press Democrat in 1978.
Yeah.
I'm not sure Sonoma County had been discovered. It certainly hadn't to the point it has now. Santa Rosa, it's still not everybody in the world knows about Santa Rosa.
Right.
But there was a time when you felt much more isolated.
Truly, yeah.
You're here at the Santa Rosa Press Democrat, and you figure that 40 miles from here, beyond 40 miles from here, nobody reads you, and nobody's ever haven't heard of the city of Santa Rosa.
Right.
Well, now it's just very exciting that because you can get emails, you write a story, and you may get an email from across the country, around the world, and that is exciting because it's a topic that interests someone for whatever reason. And it is true that now your readership has gone, almost global, and that's
pretty cool.
Well, it is exciting. It is pretty cool.
We'll be right back. We're talking with Chris Smith from the Press Democrat. This is 707. Talking with Chris Smith from the Press Democrat here on 707. No one starts life full bore as a newspaperman. It's a sort of...
Not many.
Yeah, it's a kind of evolution or de-evolution, depending. How did you start?
Well, it's actually kind of a sweet story, and I'll try and make it quick.
We got 15 minutes, go all the way.
It almost was since birth. In junior high, was what they called it when I was in junior high.
Yeah.
I had a friend still a good friend named Dennis Workman. And Dennis and I had loved our English teacher, whose name was Gino Kales, or actually it started Lotz, Gino Lotz, L-O-T-Z, from Texas. She was about this big, she was a ball of fire. And one day my friend Dennis said, Miss Lotz is going to teach journalism. And I said, and I'm not kidding, I said, what is that? What was I, 13, 14, what is that? Newspaper. Oh, so she's going to start a school newspaper. And I got involved with it. And I did love it. And I wrote, one of our classroom assignments, not for the newspaper, was to write a story based on a news story based on, say, a fairy tale. And so I did, the old, it'll come to me.
Yeah.
Goldilocks one.
Okay,
anyway,
right. Yeah.
She said she loved it, but it was way too long, way too long. And that kind of set the standard for my career. At any rate, I really did love. It's sort of an artistic thing,
Right.
A painter goes out and experiences something, and then you hope that painting evokes. And I found it was a lot of fun to go and you talk to someone or do something or go somewhere.
This is in Texas?
No, she came from Texas.
Okay.
I was in Southern California.
Got it, okay.
The great inland empire.
Right.
At any rate, to go and do something and then write about it and hope to convey that in writing.
Yeah.
I did enjoy it. And what the key thing that happened is that I was graduating or, passing from 9th grade to 10th or whatever, 8th to 9th, whatever it was, 9th to 10th. She took me aside and encouraged me to consider journalism.
Wow.
And I thought, there's nothing else that particularly appealed to me. And I very single-mindedly pursued that. I was the editor of my high school newspaper, and then I went to my school counselor. I said, where do you think I should go for journalism school? And he did kind of a Rolodex thing. He had no idea. He said, San Jose State has a good school, and which they did. I went to San Jose State for 4 years. And remarkably, I was writing, things just fell into place. I graduated from San Jose State in June of 1976, and I was writing for the Press Democrat by the fall of '77.
Wow.
It was just a very lucky thing.
Those careers don't, that doesn't happen anymore.
No, I was very lucky, and pretty much been there ever since.
That's a great story.
Well, it says something about the power of a teacher. And a lot of people have those same type of stories of that teacher who touched you, that teacher who saw something in you or ignited something in you. So my hat's off to school teachers.
Did you ever get back to Ms. Lotz?
Well, yes. As a matter of fact, we kept in touch, and we still do. over the years, and I was very happy to surprise her by being at her retirement party.
That's great.
From teaching. So, yeah, I loved her, and I am very. I'm just so grateful that it was one of those moments you wonder if it hadn't been for her. I mean, it's not like I'd be doing nothing. I probably wouldn't just be sitting in the dark somewhere. But you do wonder what you might be doing, and I just feel like to be doing what I'm doing and be doing it in Sonoma County, I feel like it's the right choice, and I'm grateful to her for helping me find it.
Yeah, it's great. It sounds like everything aligned just right in terms of like your passion and your professionalism and your press Democrat to keep it all alliterative.
Well, I think so. And even then, I was more interested. I am not a crusader, and I thank God there are crusaders. I honestly am not an investigative reporter, and thank God for investigative reporters. But I find that I love the story, and I like local stories. Clearly I enjoy most a human story with a good end, with a beginning and a middle and an end, and maybe a surprise in there. And this 3-dot style works.
It does. They're great vignettes, snapshots, on what's happening, and locally, so local. What makes a good story for you, though, besides the beginning, middle, and end, and an occasional twist?
Well, what makes a good story? Well, certainly to have it, if it's original, is wonderful. If it's not something you can already, like you've already heard, or it's a remake. Hey, if a story, certainly if it makes me laugh, or if as I'm writing it I get a little teary, then I'm guessing that maybe there's something here that's working. There's some power here. There's something evocative happening. So I appreciate if sometime I'll get an email from somebody and they might say, I snorted my cereal this morning, and thanks for that. That was just a little thing I got. It wasn't too long ago I did a story about Wallala, the bookstore in Wallala, which is actually when I first came to Sonoma County, I lived in Wallala. I worked for a tiny little weekly up on the Mendocino coast.
Great.
But there's a bookstore up there called the Frog. It's the something Frog. At any rate, and I talked about how there's a community effort, a successful community effort to keep it from going out of business. And I just kind of threw a little tagline at the end that these folks were not going to let the frog croak.
Oh, jeez. Yeah.
And I mean, this is not high comedy, but I had 2 people email me and tell me that they spit up their Cheerios reading that, and I thought, there you go.
Yeah.
So if it's a little bit funny,
that's great.
I think if it evokes something, if it strikes a chord.
And you're very available to your readers. Your name, your email address, and your phone number are right there.
Well, yeah, I don't live in no ivory tower, that's for sure. Occasionally somebody will call and they say they're surprised that I picked up my phone. I say, well, yeah, because my stories come from people. As far as where I get my stuff, I do occasionally, I observe something.
I've seen you outside. I mean,
I do get out and I'll see something, hear something, and will just produce it myself. But then I would say most of what I get, and if you remember, Herb Cain, and I am no Herb Cain, and I'm no Gaye LaBaron, but I certainly am inspired by both of them. But if you think about Herb Cain's column, he had people all throughout the Bay Area, all over the Bay Area and beyond, who were relating him things that happened. And boy, you relate, you absolutely depend on people telling you what's going on. So
when we come back, I want you to tell me who your strange to Jim is. On that note, you know what I'm talking about? Talking with Chris Smith from the Press Democrat. This is 707. We'll be right back. It's 707. We're back with Chris Smith. I'm Daedalus Howell, talking about what makes a good story. Sometimes you do stories that aren't that don't sew up as neatly, right? Sometimes you're angry. You know, sometimes you have, you interface with phenomena out there that doesn't fit as tidily into the 300-400 words you can give it. What happens? What's happening there?
Well, you know, fortunately I do have an option also of writing profiles. Once a week I write a profile, and it can be of anybody in Sonoma County. So sometimes I'll hear about something and there's a story that I'm not going to be able to condense, and so I will go and do an interview and write a, you know, say a 25-30-inch profile. Mm-hmm. And you know, certainly not everything I've written. I do like a happy story. I like a funny story. But you know, when sometimes I'm meeting with people, say kids are coming through the newsroom and they ask, well, what was your, you know, favorite story? And I think back, and really I think to the end of my career, there are a couple that will spring into mind that you almost hate to mention. Mm-hmm. Because I wrote our first story about the abduction of Polly Klaas.
I didn't realize that. Wow.
I did, and I was a police reporter on a Saturday, and we hear that that a 12-year-old girl in Petaluma is missing, abducted from a sleepover with her mother in the next room. And I will never forget, in my memory, I'm coming down the Katati grade toward Petaluma, and I'm thinking, this thing is going to be resolved before I get to, by the time I get to Petaluma, this child's going to be found and this thing's going to be resolved, because there's no way that a stranger walked into her house with two little girls here for a sleepover, right, picked up Polly Klaas and carried her out.
Didn't track, didn't sound like it was
no
real. Yeah, I know what you mean.
No way.
Yeah, not in Petaluma, yeah.
In Petaluma, so a block from Walnut Park, you know. So, yeah. Of course, that became one of the biggest stories ever. Mm-hmm.
I live next door to her.
Oh my gosh, they're in Petaluma?
Yeah, right next door on 4th Street. Yeah.
Well, that was one, and then I wrote our first story about Nicholas Green, mm-hmm, a little boy from Bodega Bay. Family went to Italy, and they're on the highway late one night. Car comes up alongside. These people, they're bandits in the other car for some reason, think that they are carrying jewels or something, and try to run them off, fire a gun, and then it turns out the Greens get away, but it turns out that Nicholas has been shot in the head. And that became also one of the biggest stories ever out of Sonoma County during its run, because the Greens donated all of his organs to Italians in a country that, in a very strongly Catholic country, in which organ donation had not really caught on. Mm-hmm. And the grandeur of those people captured the imagination of the world, and truly have promoted the cause of organ donation everywhere. So that was another one. And then one other, I wrote our first story, our first interview with Carmina Salcido. Wow. And you know, Carmina was 3 years old at the time of the unspeakable Salcido killings, and went away and came back. So of course she was 3 years old when it happened, so she came back at about 19. And I sat and interviewed Carmina Salcido, and I if you want to be overly dramatic, you'd say there's not a day that I don't think about Carmina, but I think about Carmina often. Mm-hmm. And she's living here again, and just what an astounding story that was. So I'm happy to go where the story goes, you know. And
sometimes, obviously, dark places.
Well, exactly. You know, I can't always, and I don't try to contort the story. You know, sometimes I think people may think I take a story and I twist it to be happy. I really try to let the story tell itself.
Are there stories you won't touch?
Well, no, I don't think so. I mean, you know, I will say that sometimes you hear about something and it is a big story, and sadly I feel like I just can't. I'm not the right reporter for it, or I can't give it the time that it needs. But I will then talk to someone else. You know, we have, thank goodness, you know, we're a team at the Press Democrat, and hopefully somebody else will feel like they have the time and the wherewithal, to do the story. Yeah. Would
your dream assignment be being sent out as a travel reporter to cover Burning Man?
Yes. Well, you know, actually, I have written from Burning Man.
Oh, you have? Okay, I didn't realize that. Yeah,
yeah, no, I wrote from Burning Man this year and last year. Yeah, I had a story this year about Gabe Kearney from the Petaluma City Council, who has a job at Burning Man.
He's like a security guy.
He's the safety officer. Yeah. I said, well, what do you do? And my sense of what he does, yes, he say there's a sculpture that you can climb. Well, he and his people are supposed to make sure the thing's not going to fall over, right, or the stairs aren't going to break.
What is it about Burning Man that you like?
You know, it is a very liberated and very fun place. It is like through the looking glass. Yeah. You know, that every minute at Burning Man, you see something that you don't normally see. It's a piece of art. It's costumes. It's just beholding. And you walk out there at night, say midnight, and there's a million things going on. You've got, here goes a passing dragon spewing flames, and you've got 10,000 people on lit up bicycles, and these sculptures are lit up and changing color. And then all of these art cars are going by, and they're all blaring music, and none of them are playing the same music. It's a cacophony. But also I just find that Burning Man, I really believe it's one of the happiest places in the world, because people, you really have to want to be there. You don't just stop by at Burning Man. Right. You plan for months, you get everything in order. You know, you have to carry everything in.
So it's a self-selecting tribe that sort of winnows out the...
well, yeah. Well, anybody with any sense wouldn't go. Right. Because...
it's the desert.
You got the dust, you got the portable toilets, you know. Yeah. But people are so happy to be there, and I know there's a lot of mythology about Burning Man, and it's not that it's not true, but it's not. It certainly is not. It's like, it'd be like going to a rock concert with some of the biggest band names in the business, right, and then just kind of focusing on, well, it's just all about drugs and wild behavior. Well, no, it really isn't. You know, there is some of that there, yeah, but it's not.
There's some of that next door.
Yeah, it's not what's happening. Yeah. So no, Burning Man is a lark.
Yeah. If you could establish a Burning Man type consciousness here, or even a festival of its ilk, would you do it?
Well, you know,
I mean, there's attempts on occasion.
There are some Burning Man type, that kind of spin-off events. Yeah. And so you've got art, and you've got conversation about humanity. I can tell you that I had cause to go to a doctor while I was at Burning Man last year, not this year, but last. Nothing serious. But I'm talking to a young physician from Las Vegas. And I asked him how long he'd been there. He said he'd only been there a day, but he had some time to go out into Burning Man. And I said, what'd you think? And I was kind of expecting that it wasn't going to be a positive, you know, reaction. Yeah. And this young doctor said to me, I wish every place could be like here. Wow. So now, there's no such thing as a paradise, or at least,
or utopia.
Utopia. Yeah. Things happen at Burning Man, and there are inconsistencies with all the consumption of fossil fuels and the cost and all that. It's all true, but people are very kind. One thing I love about Burning Man that I like to, there's been a lot of conversation about, and there always will be, is just simple trash. There's an ethic at Burning Man that you don't leave anything. You don't leave anything on what they call the playa, the earth there. And if you see something, if something is dropped by accident, somebody's going to pick it up. And I would so love if we could do that. You know, there's been letters to the editor, they come and go about the trash in Sonoma County. Here we live in Sonoma County, California. Right. And yet there's so many people who dump trash. I was depressed the other day. I was on the Highway 101 coming from, 12. Yeah. And I was going very slow as a little back up, and I'm looking, and I'm realizing the cigarette butts along there are epic. Right. Epic. And you think, a little bit of respect, you wouldn't do that. But no, I think there's a lot to learn from Burning Man.
Yes, indeed, and a lot to learn from you. I hope you come back.
Thank you.
Chris Smith from the Press Democrat here on 707. See you again.